Hello, everyone. Um, I hope you are very well. My presentation today is about linguistic representationability of the self and the other. The subtitle is Can the Arab Speak? You know, it's inspired by um, Gayatri Spivak's essay, Can the Subaltern Speak? And the presentation deals with a problem in the academy, which I want to highlight. This problem is that there are some foundational, post-colonial anthologies and textbooks that are taught in English departments worldwide. Um, these books, celebrate the other and the marginalized. The problem is that they did not mention any single post-colonial Arab writer in them. Uh, Although they celebrate kind of, the other and the marginalized, but they have practiced some kind of marginalization, of the other, and especially Arabic writings in English and those Arabic writings in translation. Now, the marginalizing texts, there are five main marginalizing texts. The first one is The Empire Writes Back by Bill Ashcroft, Gareth Griffiths, and Helen Tiffin. Second one is an anthology of colonial and post-colonial short fiction. A third one is the Arnold Anthology of Post-Colonial Literatures in English, edited by Professor John Thiem. And the third one is Colonial and Post-Colonial Fiction and Anthology um, by Robert Bruce. The fifth one is the Cambridge Introduction to the Short Story in English, where there is no short story in Arabic, writing included. Now, these texts, have kind of marginalized a whole range of Arabic texts that are dealing with the experience of post-coloniality, and I wonder, for example, Najib Mahfouz is not mentioned, although Najib Mahfouz is, is a Nobel Prize winner in literature in 1988, and another seminal text is Season of Migration to the North by Tayyib Saleh. There's a whole range of texts. For example, the translator by Leila Abu Layla, Mohja Kaf's The Girl in the Tangerine Scarf, Fadia Fakir's My Name is Selma, Hassan Kanafani's Men in the Sun. And I have this urged me to write an email to the authors of these textbooks and ask them, for example, is the Arab marginalized in the Empire Writes Back and in your text? And as you can see here, I said, I really wonder, why is the Arab writing in English not mentioned at all, even in the 2002 edition of the Empire Writes Back? There are many Arab writers who have chosen the English language for their thoughts. What about the following list of authors and their novels in English which cater to the definition of post-coloniality and writing back? And I have mentioned here a number of texts. For example, Ahdaf's Waves in the Eye of the Sun, The Map of Love, Leila Ahmed's The Border Passage, and you can see a list of a whole range of texts that are post-colonial and writing back to the canon and history. I asked Professor Bill Ashcroft and Professor John Thiem, what about Tayyib Saleh's novel Season of Migration to the North? which, according to Petra Fatchinger, writes back to a canonical English text, that is Conrad's Heart of Darkness. What about Arabic literature in translation, like Najib Mahfouz's, the Cairo trilogy, and Ghassan Kanafani's, as I just mentioned? Um, you know, Professor Bill Ashcroft and John Thiem were very kind to reply to my emails. For example, Professor John Thiem said, um, my question was, is the Arab marginalized? And he said, yes, I very much agree that that is the Arnold anthology, would have benefited from the inclusion of more Arab and other Middle Eastern writers. And he said, writing from countries in the Commonwealth was in fact privileged over non-Commonwealth writing. And about the future of such a book that would include Arabic writing in English in anthology, he said, it looks as though this anthology, a future anthology, won't go ahead after all. And so it's a real pity, as he says. Professor Bill Ashcroft was very kind to reply, provide some reasons why he didn't include Arabic literary texts, and I'm highlighting some phrases in which he says, Arabic literature is indeed coming into the purview of post-colonial studies and has been growing over the last 2 decades. And he mentioned Saleh because I asked about Saleh. He said Saleh has been a long-standing subject for post-colonial criticism. He added that The Empire Writes Back has opened up a field for the publication of Arabic texts in English. And Professor Ashcroft ended by saying, your list of texts shows that this is a field that really needs to be taken into greater account. And I hope that would happen soon in the future, Now, the main question to examine is when a certain literature or culture is underrepresented, what possible reasons are there or beliefs can account for this kind of marginalization? At least, I'm thinking from a post-colonial viewpoint. So that's the main question to ask. And my argument is that there is a belief that the Arab cannot produce a worthy kind of literature because of the Arabic language itself, which is believed to be oral, and hence, if it is oral, it is irrational, illogical, unproductive. And this belief in the illogicality and irrationality of orality itself is, I think, based on the hierarchy between writing and orality. So let's start upside down. Let's start from the bottom. The differences between orality and writing and orality, and think all the time that Arabic language is placed by some Orientalists as oral culture, and so it will carry on all the negative, traits of orality, and it will affect the Arab mind, as it is said. I'm presenting 2 tables. The first one is about writing versus orality. As you can see here, in the first column, there's writing, say in the second, orality, in the third, this is the source of this comparison and page number. So in this column, in the first column, all these traits are some kind of, positive, while the traits attributed to orality are negative. For example, writing is believed to be, of course, slower than speech because it is slower than speech, so it is less fragmented and more syntactically integrated, while orality is repetitive, redundant, and situational. This is what Walter Ong says in Orality and Literacy, page 14. And as Bill Ashcroft says in key concepts in post-colonial studies, writing is usually associated with the colonizer, while orality is associated with the colonized. Writing is literacy, civilized, truth, reality, modernity, logic, historicity. Writing is, necessary to understand science, history, philosophy, literature, and language. Writing represents that kind of knowledge and authority. And in the words of Edward Said, there is no need to travel to the Orient if you know it by writing. You can just have a book, write a book about the Orient. And I'm citing here Arthur Balfour in Cromer's Modern Egypt, who's talking about England and Egypt. He says, England knows Egypt. England knows that Egypt cannot have self-government. And so England, confirms that by occupying Egypt. So the question is, if writing, which is, you can think of writing as belonging to the realm of the colonizer. So the colonized does not have this kind of knowledge and authority. And so who can represent? It is the Orientalist, for example, who can speak for or represent the Orient through a number of tools of representation, which are related to writing, like an archive, a library, a laboratory, a museum, a theater, etc. And the traits, the negative traits of orality as repetitive, redundant, and situational, illiteracy, it's a sign of primitiveness, as Levi Strauss says in The Savage Mind. Untruth, traditionality, as Jack Cody says, prehistorical, pre-logical. So the question is, if Arabic belongs to the second column, and this is what we can see here in this table. For example, Arabic is believed to be oral, as Walter Ong says in Orality and Literacy. He says that Arabic belongs to those cultures that preserve much of the mindset of primary orality. On another page, he says, Arabic is a culture that has known writing for centuries, but has never fully interiorized it. Moro Berger in The Arab World Today says that Arabic, let me enlarge this, Arabic language is much given to rhetoric, and so Arabs are consequently, because Arabic language is much given to rhetoric, Arabs are incapable of true thought. He also adds that because there is an intrinsic weakness in the Arabic language itself, that Arabs become unable to produce any great art, and they are unlikely to do so in the near future. This is what Berger says. He attributes this kind of inability to produce a great art or literature to the intrinsic weaknesses of the Arabic language itself. The weaknesses that he believes to have been there. Renan in in the general history and comparative system of the Semitic languages, expands this idea to the Semites in general. And he says that the Semites never produced great literature or culture because of their languages. You can see, I mean, the similarity between Berger and Renan, in which they attribute this kind of inability, which they believe in, to the Arabic, to the language itself. He says because of their languages, which are inorganic, arrested, totally ossified, incapable of self-regeneration. And this idea can be attributed to some kind of stereotypical view of the Islamic mind, for example, as Manfred Halpern says. Even he says, even though all human thought processes or processes can be reduced to 8, the Islamic mind is capable of only 4 processes. If the human thought can, human thought processes can be seen as 8 processes, the Islamic mind is capable of only 4. And you can highlight this kind of the word Islamic mind, so that there is a kind of mind for the Islamic people. And also this can be applied to a concept of Arab mind. And there is a book by Rafael Bataille. It's called The Arab Mind also. And we have this kind of idea about not just the Arab mind, but also the whole Oriental mind. And I'm citing here Cromer in modern Egypt, who says that these are the characteristics of Oriental mind. He says, want of accuracy is the main characteristic of the Oriental mind. The mind of the Oriental is eminently wanting in symmetry. Although the ancient Arabs acquired the science of dialectics, their descendants are singularly deficient in the logical faculty. Amberger concludes that the study of Arabic literature, for example, or Arabia in general, is worthless. The study of the region of the Arabia or its languages does not constitute its own reward. So that's the end of my presentation, and I hope that The Empire Writes Back and the other anthologies are revised to include Arabic literature that writes back to the canon and history. Thank you very much, and goodbye.